Ambassador Daniel Carter stared out the viewport of the shuttle as the massive council station came into view. The enormous ring-shaped structure orbited Saturn, its silver surface reflecting the distant sun. Daniel was 62 years old now, his hair mostly gray, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. 15 years had passed since the day that changed everything. Daniel remembered it clearly. He had been a mid-level diplomat at the United Nations when the Vrulhak mothership appeared in the sky above New York. The massive ship had blocked out the sun, casting shadows across the frightened city below. The aliens called themselves the Vrulhak. They were tall, with gray-blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They spoke through translation devices that made their harsh language sound flat and emotionless. They expected us to bow down, Daniel muttered to himself. They were so sure we would surrender. But humanity had not surrendered. When the Vrulhak demanded Earth's resources and claimed ownership of the solar system, they received a unified response. No. The standoff that followed lasted 3 tense months. The Vrulhak threatened, humanity prepared for war. In the end, the aliens had backed down, surprised by Earth's unity and determination. They offered a compromise, a probationary status in the Galactic Confederation. Ambassador Carter, a voice called from behind him. We'll be docking in 20 minutes. Daniel turned to see Dr. Olivia Martinez, his chief science advisor. She was in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back tightly and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Thank you, Olivia, he replied. Are the others ready? Yes, sir. Admiral Greg Peters is going over the security protocols again, and Dr. Samantha Wells is practicing her xenobiology presentation, just in case. Daniel nodded. Their mission was simple yet nearly impossible. After 15 years of careful diplomacy, Earth had finally been granted a speaking slot at the Grand Council meeting. It was a privilege rarely given to species less than a century into their space age. Most civilizations in the Confederation had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They still think we're primitive, Olivia said, moving to stand beside Daniel at the viewport. I intercepted some communications between council members. They're calling this a courtesy appearance to the monkey species. Daniel smiled slightly. Let them underestimate us. It's worked in our favor before. The shuttle banked smoothly as it approached the docking bay. Through the viewport, Daniel could see ships of all shapes and sizes. Some were organic-looking, with curves and flowing lines. Others were angular and mechanical. Each represented a different species, a different world. Do you think they'll listen? Olivia asked quietly. Daniel considered the question. Humanity had prepared for this moment since first contact. Earth's best minds had studied the limited information shared by the Confederation. They had analyzed alien technologies, cultures, and politics. They had found patterns that the aliens themselves had missed. They won't have a choice, Daniel finally answered. Not with what we know. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. Daniel gathered his notes and straightened his formal diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric was simple compared to the elaborate costumes worn by other species, but it conveyed Earth's seriousness of purpose. The Vrulhak representative will meet us at the airlock, Olivia reminded him. Ambassador Skrull, the same one who tried to convince the council to deny our speaking request. Be polite, but firm, Daniel instructed the small human delegation as they gathered near the airlock. Remember what's at stake. We have one chance to change everything. As the airlock cycled open, Daniel took a deep breath. Hundreds of alien species waited beyond, many openly hostile to humanity's presence. Most believed humans were too violent, too unpredictable to join galactic society. They saw Earth as a backwater planet, barely worth notice. They have no idea what's coming, Daniel whispered as the doors opened. It was time for humanity to speak, and this time, no one would dare interrupt. The airlock door slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Skrull of the Vrulhak stood waiting, towering nearly 7 feet tall. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he looked down at the human delegation. Ambassador Carter, Skrull said, his translation device giving his words a flat, mechanical tone. The Council grants you welcome, though many question the wisdom of allowing such a volatile species into these chambers. Daniel smiled politely. We appreciate the opportunity to address the Council. Earth looks forward to a productive exchange of ideas. Skrull made a gesture that Daniel recognized as dismissive. Follow me. The station is vast, and your speaking slot is scheduled for the final session. Remember your place here. You are observers granted temporary speaking privileges, nothing more. As they moved through the station's wide corridors, the human delegation drew stares from representatives of countless alien species. Some looked curious, others contemptuous. Many seemed fearful, moving aside as the humans passed. They act like we might bite, whispered Admiral Greg Peters, walking close behind Daniel. The Admiral wore a simple Earth Defense Force uniform with minimal decorations, though he was one of Earth's most decorated officers. In a way, that's exactly what they're afraid of. Dr. Samantha Wells replied quietly. As their xenobiologist, she had studied over 50 alien species. Most of these civilizations haven't had a war in thousands of years. They find us unpredictable. Daniel listened to his team while carefully observing their surroundings. The Galactic Council station was an engineering marvel. The enormous wheel-shaped structure rotated slowly to create artificial gravity. Each section housed delegates from different galactic quadrants, connected by high-speed transport tubes. As they passed a group of tall, insect-like aliens, Daniel's translator picked up fragments of conversation. They're the ones who repelled a Krathvar assault fleet. I heard they still wage war among themselves. Supposedly, they decoded the Vrolhack encryption in less than an Earth week. They're talking about us, Olivia noted, adjusting her translator. Good, Daniel replied. Let them talk. After a 20-minute walk, they'd reached the central chamber. The room was massive. An amphitheater with thousands of seating positions arranged in concentric circles. In the center was a raised platform where speakers would address the council. Your delegation will be seated there. Skrull pointed to a small section at the outermost ring, far from the central speaking area. As befits your status. They've put us in the cheap seats, Olivia whispered. For now, Daniel replied. A deep tone resonated through the chamber, signaling the session's beginning. Delegates hurried to their assigned places as a tall, ethereal-looking alien took the central position. That's the Council Arbiter, Samantha explained, a member of the Vivran species. They've led the Council for over 10,000 years. The Arbiter raised 4 slender arms, and the chamber fell silent. We convene this 12,457th session of the Galactic Council, the Arbiter announced, its voice somehow reaching every corner of the vast room without seeming loud. We recognize all member species according to the ancient protocols, with speaking rights assigned by longevity in space. A holographic display appeared above the central platform, showing the day's agenda. The human delegation was listed dead last, after even the service species that maintain the station. We begin with urgent matters concerning the expansion of the Nexus Dominion into peaceful sectors, the Arbiter continued. 7 worlds have fallen in the past standard cycle. The Council must determine an appropriate response. As the senior species began to debate, Daniel carefully studied the holographic displays showing the Dominion's advance across the galaxy. He quietly made notes on his datapad. Do you see it? He asked Greg. The Admiral nodded slowly. Their invasion pattern. It's a classic pincer movement, just like we suspected. The Council has been debating this for months, Olivia said, reviewing information on her own pad. No action taken beyond diplomatic protests. Daniel watched as species after species took the central platform, each offering complicated proposals that led nowhere. Some called for negotiations, others for economic sanctions. None suggested direct intervention. They're afraid, Daniel said softly, and they have no idea what's really coming. The first day of council meetings dragged on for hours. Species after species took the central platform, speaking in carefully measured tones about the Nexus Dominion threat. None proposed any real action. Daniel Carter listened carefully, making notes on patterns he observed in the Council's behavior. When the Arbiter announced a short recess, Daniel turned to his team. "We need more information. Spread out. Make contacts. Find anyone willing to talk about the Dominion attacks." The human delegation split up, moving through the crowded reception hall where refreshments were being served. Olivia approached a group of smaller aliens who had been seated near Earth's delegation, equally far from the center. "Hello," she said, using her translator. "Dr. Olivia Martinez, representing Earth." One of the aliens with copper-colored scales and large eyes made a gesture of greeting. "Trelnox of Vega Prime. You are the new species, yes, the warriors." Olivia smiled. "We prefer diplomats, but we can defend ourselves when necessary." "Your kind has a reputation." Another alien joined in. This one had pale blue skin and moved with a floating motion. "The Vrulhak never speak of their first encounter with your world, but rumors spread. They say you forced them to retreat." "We simply stood our ground," Olivia replied carefully. "May I ask about your experiences with the Nexus Dominion?" The aliens looked at each other nervously. Finally, Trelnox spoke. "My homeworld borders their territory. 3 of our colony planets have already fallen. The Council does nothing but talk." "Why?" Olivia asked. "The elder races fear war more than conquest," the blue alien explained. "Most haven't fought a real conflict in thousands of years. They believe the Dominion will negotiate eventually." Across the room, Daniel had found a different source of information. He was speaking with a tall, humanoid alien who introduced herself as Ambassador Kira Lin. Her species, the Altarians, had evolved similar to humans, but with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. "Your first Council appearance comes at a dangerous time, Ambassador Carter," Kira said. "The Dominion grows bolder each cycle." "We've studied the reports," Daniel replied. "But I suspect there's more happening than what appears in official documents." Kira looked around carefully before speaking again. "The Dominion sent envoys to several elder races secretly. They offered arrangements, protection in exchange for non-interference." "Bribes," Daniel said flatly. "Politics," Kira corrected. "The Dominion believes they can divide the Council. They may be right." Meanwhile, Admiral Greg Peters had found himself speaking with a group of military observers from various worlds. Unlike the diplomats, these officers spoke more directly. "Your weapon systems are primitive, but effective," said a 4-armed warrior with red armor plates covering vital areas. "We studied your defense of the Jupiter mining stations against pirates last year. Impressive tactics." Greg nodded modestly. "We adapted quickly." "That is what makes your species concerning," another military observer added. "Most species take generations to develop what you master in decades." As the recess ended, the human delegation regrouped near their assigned seats. They compared notes quickly before the next session began. "The smaller worlds are terrified," Olivia reported. "They know the Council won't protect them. And some big players may have been compromised," Daniel added. "Potential side deals with the Dominion." Greg leaned in. "Their military observers respect our capabilities, even if they consider our technology primitive." The Arbiter called the session back to order. A representative from a recently attacked world approached the central platform. Though not scheduled to speak, the alien began describing the horrors they had witnessed during the Dominion attack. "They showed no mercy. They destroy our cultural centers first, then our communication networks. We tried to surrender, but—" The Arbiter raised a hand, cutting off the speaker. "You are not recognized. The Council follows protocols that have served for millennia. Return to your delegation." Daniel watched the devastated representative retreat, ignored by most of the chamber. He looked at his team and saw the same anger in their eyes that he felt. "2 more days," he said quietly. "Then it's our turn." After 3 long days of circular debate, Humanity's scheduled speaking time finally arrived. Most delegates had already left for their quarters, considering the human address a mere formality not worth attending. The vast council chamber, which had been filled to capacity during the senior species presentations, was now nearly empty. Daniel Carter checked his data pad one final time as the Arbiter approached the central platform. "Admiral, is the presentation ready?" Daniel asked quietly. Greg nodded. "All set. Dr. Wells helped me finalize the simulation models this morning." The Arbiter's voice echoed in the half-empty chamber. "The Council recognizes the representative from Earth, a probationary member. You have the standard 5 minutes allocated to new species." As Daniel walked toward the central platform, he activated a small device in his pocket. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, causing the remaining delegates to look up in surprise. "Distinguished delegates," Daniel began, his voice clear and confident. "I notice many of you didn't bother to stay for our address. That's about to change." He pressed another control on his pad. The massive holographic display behind him flickered to life with images from Earth's history, ancient battles, modern cities, space stations, and finally, first contact with the Vrulak. "Humanity has been invited to speak, so we will speak plainly," Daniel continued. "While this council debates procedures that have remained unchanged for millennia, worlds are falling to the Nexus Dominion. Billions of lives are at risk." The holographic display shifted to show side-by-side comparisons. Dominion invasion patterns matched with historical Earth military campaigns. The Dominion isn't using some mysterious strategy beyond understanding. They're using textbook military tactics, specifically tactics Earth abandoned centuries ago, because we developed better methods. Daniel noticed movement at the chamber entrances. Delegates who had left were returning, summoned by urgent messages from those who remained. "While you've been debating, Earth has been analyzing. The Dominion uses a variation of what we once called blitzkrieg, overwhelming force at key points. It works because many of you have forgotten how to fight. We haven't." The Vrulak ambassador, Skrull, rose from his seat. "Arbiter, the Earth representative exceeds both his allotted time and the bounds of propriety. This primitive species presumes to lecture the Council on matters beyond their understanding." Daniel didn't pause or even look at Skrull. He simply continued speaking, his voice growing stronger. "Earth vessels have been mapping Dominion fleet movements for the past 6 months. We identified their command structures, supply lines, and communication networks." The Arbiter made a gesture that would normally silence a speaker, but Daniel ignored it. More delegates streamed into the chamber, drawn by messages spreading throughout the station. "The Dominion strategy depends on fear and division. They expect you to retreat separately, to negotiate separately, and ultimately, to fall separately." The holographic display now showed a detailed map of Dominion territory, with key vulnerabilities highlighted. Daniel gestured to Admiral Greg Peters, who joined him on the platform. "Admiral Peters will now present our tactical analysis," Daniel said. Greg stepped forward confidently. "The Dominion appears strong because they attack where they expect no resistance. Their supply lines are overextended. Their flank defenses are minimal. Their communication encryption is outdated." The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the Arbiter watched without interruption. "We've prepared detailed defense plans for the 3 star systems most likely to be attacked next," Greg continued, displaying the battle simulations. "Our models show that coordinated resistance would force a Dominion retreat with minimal casualties." Daniel stepped forward again. "Earth doesn't ask for your permission to help defend these worlds. We simply inform this council of our intentions. Ships are already en route to the Epsilon sector with defense systems calibrated to Dominion weapons frequencies." The Arbiter finally found its voice. "This is unprecedented. No probationary species has ever. Unprecedented times require unprecedented actions." Daniel interrupted. He looked around the now crowded chamber. "When faced with existential threats, protocol becomes secondary to survival. Humanity learned this lesson through centuries of conflict. No one spoke. No one moved. For the first time in living memory, a new species had silenced the Galactic Council. The silence in the chamber lasted nearly a full minute. Finally, the Arbiter raised all four of its slender arms. "This session will adjourn for 1 hour," the Arbiter announced. "When we return, the Senior Council will meet in the private chamber. The Earth delegation is requested to attend." As delegates filed out, buzzing with urgent conversations, Daniel and his team gathered their materials. "That went well," Olivia said quietly. "I counted at least 40 species recording your entire speech. It's already spreading across the station communications network." Daniel nodded. "Good. Let them talk. Let them worry." Ambassador Skrull approached the human delegation, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in what Daniel recognized as agitation. "You have violated countless protocols," Skrull said. "The Council may revoke Earth's probationary status for this display." "We violated protocols to save lives," Daniel replied calmly. "Including yours. The Dominion would eventually reach Vrolhak Space too." Before Skrull could respond, a small group of representatives approached. Daniel recognized Trelmox and several other delegates from vulnerable worlds. "Is it true?" one asked. "Your ships are already moving to defend the Epsilon sector?" "Yes," Admiral Peters confirmed. 3 Earth defense vessels with our newest shield technology. They'll reach the main colony world in 2 days. "My people have a settlement there," the alien said, its voice trembling. "The Council told us no help was possible for at least 30 days. We move faster than the Council," Daniel said simply. The private council chamber was smaller but no less impressive than the main hall. Only the representatives of the 20 oldest spacefaring civilizations were permitted regular access. The human delegation stood in the center as the senior council members took their seats in a semicircle facing them. The Arbiter spoke first. "In 12,000 years, no probationary species has ever addressed the Council as you have today. No species has ever ignored the Arbiter's authority to manage proceedings." "And in 12,000 years," Daniel replied, "has the Council ever faced a threat like the Dominion while doing nothing effective to stop it?" Murmurs spread through the senior council members. A tall, crystalline being rose from its seat. This was the Zkivoth Elder, representing one of the oldest council species. "Your species has been spacefaring for barely a moment," the Elder said, its voice creating harmonics that made the air vibrate. "Yet you presume to lecture us on galactic security." Daniel gestured to Dr. Samantha Wells, who stepped forward with her datapad. "With respect, Elder," Samantha said, "sometimes fresh eyes see what familiar ones cannot. We've analyzed all publicly available data on Dominion movements. Their pattern is clear to anyone familiar with military history." She activated her pad, projecting a series of battle simulations. "The Dominion uses what we call divide and conquer tactics. They isolate targets before attacking. They study their enemies for weaknesses." Admiral Peters joined her, and the Council's greatest weakness is its reluctance to act decisively. "The Dominion has studied your public debates, your emphasis on non-intervention. They're counting on your philosophical paralysis." Another council member, a cybernetically enhanced being, spoke next. "You claim your primitive species understands warfare better than civilizations that have existed for millennia." "Yes," Daniel said simply, "because we remember its cost. Earth fought itself for centuries before finding peace. We've made every mistake possible in warfare and learned from each one. The Dominion isn't invincible. They're predictable." Olivia stepped forward. "We don't ask you to fight. Earth will lead the defense effort. We only ask that you don't interfere with our operations." The senior council members exchanged glances. The Arbiter's expression was unreadable as it consulted quietly with several members. "What you propose is unprecedented," the Arbiter finally said. "A probationary species taking military action across multiple sectors. The threat is unprecedented," Daniel countered. "Our response must match it." A new voice spoke from the edge of the chamber. I support the Earth proposal. It was Ambassador Kira Len of the Altarians. Though not a senior council member, she had apparently been granted special permission to attend. As do I, said another voice, then another, and another. Daniel watched as the balance of power visibly shifted in the ancient chamber. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council faced a choice: adapt or become irrelevant. The debate in the senior council chamber lasted for hours. Daniel and his team stood firm as questions came from all sides. Some council members remained deeply skeptical of Earth's intentions. Others seemed almost eager for humanity's help. "We must put this to a formal vote," the arbiter finally announced. "The proposal before us is to authorize an Earth-led defensive coalition against the Nexus Dominion. This would grant temporary military coordination authority to a probationary species." The crystalline Scavoth elder rose again. "Before we vote, I must ask directly. Ambassador Carter, what does Earth gain from this intervention? No species acts without self-interest." Daniel looked around the chamber before answering. "Earth is part of this galaxy now. If the Dominion continues to expand, they will eventually reach our sector. We prefer to face them now, alongside allies, rather than alone later." "A practical answer," the elder acknowledged. "There is more," Daniel added. "Humanity spent thousands of years divided, fighting amongst ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own planet more than once. When we finally united and looked to the stars, we promised ourselves we would not bring our worst tendencies with us. We would stand against oppression and conquest wherever we found it." The arbiter called for the vote. One by one, the senior council members registered their positions on the central display. The chamber was tense as the numbers shifted back and forth. "It seems we are divided," the arbiter noted as the final votes appeared. 11 in favor, 9 opposed. "By our ancient protocols, a divided senior council cannot authorize such action." Daniel stepped forward. "With respect, Arbiter, Earth does not require authorization. We informed the Council of our intentions as a courtesy. The ships we sent to the Epsilon sector were requested by its government through proper diplomatic channels." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The arbiter's expression remained unreadable. "You would defy the Council's decision?" asked a member from a gaseous species that hovered in a containment field. "We would respect the sovereignty of independent worlds to request defense assistance," Daniel corrected. "Something this council claims to value." Olivia moved beside Daniel. "We've already received formal requests from 23 worlds in threatened sectors. Each has agreed to our defense protocols." Admiral Peters added, "Our vessels carry no invasion forces. They deploy defensive systems only, designed to protect civilian populations and infrastructure." The council chamber grew louder as members debated among themselves. Daniel watched carefully, noting which species seemed most agitated and which most supportive. Finally, the cybernetic council member spoke again. "Perhaps there is a compromise. The council could establish a temporary security committee to oversee this defensive initiative. Earth would lead military coordination, but report to this committee. A security committee with membership based on contribution rather than age," Daniel suggested. "Species that provide ships, technology, or resources would have representation." The arbiter considered this. "Such a structure has no precedent." "Then we will create one," Daniel replied. "The threat we face demands new approaches." After more debate, the arbiter called for a second vote. This time, the margin was narrower, but the result different. 13 in favor, 7 opposed, the arbiter announced. "The motion carries. A Galactic Security Committee will be formed, with Earth granted temporary leadership of defensive operations against the Nexus Dominion." As the session ended, delegates approached the human team with offers of support, questions about strategy, and requests for protection. The Earth delegation was suddenly at the center of a new galactic power structure. "It's just the beginning," Daniel told his team as they returned to their quarters. "The real work starts now." That evening, reports arrived from the Epsilon sector. A Dominion battle group had entered the system, only to retreat when they encountered Earth vessels already in defensive positions. First test passed, Admiral Peters said, reviewing the data. They didn't expect resistance. They'll be back, Daniel replied. And with greater numbers. We need to be ready. News of the successful defense spread quickly through the station. Suddenly, Earth was no longer seen as just a primitive newcomer. They were seen as leaders. 2 weeks after the Council vote, the newly formed Galactic Security Committee was fully operational. Earth's defense fleet had grown from 3 ships to 27, now joined by vessels from 14 other species. Admiral Greg Peters coordinated from the newly commissioned defense platform near the threatened Epsilon sector. Daniel remained on the Council station, working diplomatic channels to maintain the fragile coalition. Olivia led a cultural exchange program that helped bridge differences between allied species. Dr. Samantha Wells trained mixed-species medical teams to handle casualties from different biologies. In his temporary office overlooking the station's central hub, Daniel reviewed reports from across the defensive line. The Dominion had pulled back after several failed probing attacks, apparently reassessing their strategy. This pause gave the coalition valuable time to strengthen defenses. A soft chime announced a visitor. Daniel looked up to see Ambassador Skrull at the door. Ambassador Carter, the Vrul hack said, his tone less hostile than before. The Senior Council requests an update on defensive operations. Of course, Daniel replied. Please tell them Admiral Peters will provide a full briefing tomorrow. Skrull hesitated, then said, I must admit, your defensive strategy has proven more effective than I anticipated. The Dominion has never retreated before. They've never faced a united response before, Daniel pointed out. They relied on the Council's division. Before Skrull could respond, Daniel's communication pad signaled an urgent message. He read it quickly, his expression growing serious. It seems our conversation is timely, Daniel said. The Dominion has launched a major attack at Proxima Centauri, their largest fleet movement yet. Proxima Centauri was a key strategic location, just one jump point away from Earth itself. It was also home to colonies from 7 different species. The Security Committee is activating Response Protocol 3, Daniel continued, gathering his materials. All Allied vessels in nearby sectors are responding. This will be the true test of your coalition, Skrull observed. Yes, Daniel agreed. It will. In the Command Center of Defense Platform Alpha, Admiral Peters received the alert. He immediately activated the communication array linking all coalition vessels. Dominion fleet approaching Proxima Centauri, he announced. All ships, assume battle formation Delta. Remember your training. The coalition fleet moved with surprising coordination. Ships that had never worked together before now executed complex maneuvers as a unified force. Earth vessels took central positions, their more advanced shield technology protecting smaller, faster attack ships from other worlds. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace, expecting to find a few scattered defenders. Instead, they faced 63 warships in perfect defensive formation. On the Council station, the battle was displayed in the main chamber. Hundreds of delegates watched in tense silence as the 2 fleets engaged. Daniel stood with Olivia and Samantha near the back, deliberately staying away from the center. Our tactics are working, Olivia whispered, analyzing the data feeds. The Dominion expected us to protect the colonies first. Instead, we're targeting their command ships. The battle unfolded with a precision that surprised even the most skeptical council members. Human military doctrine, refined through centuries of warfare, proved devastatingly effective against the Dominion, whose strategies had evolved to counter the Council's predictable patterns. After 3 hours of intense fighting, the Dominion fleet commander signaled retreat. The coalition forces had destroyed 17 enemy vessels while losing only 5 of their own. The colonies at Proxima Centauri remained safe. Cheers erupted in the council chamber. Species that had been enemies for centuries now celebrated together. Daniel received congratulations from delegates who had barely acknowledged him weeks before. The Arbiter approached him as the celebration continued. "It seems we underestimated humanity's value to the galactic community." "We're just getting started," Daniel replied. That evening, delegations that had opposed Earth's initiatives began quietly approaching Daniel with requests for defensive technology and training. The balance of power within the Council had shifted dramatically. In a private moment with his team, Daniel reflected on how quickly things had changed. From barely tolerated newcomers to military leaders in less than a month. "They still don't fully trust us," Samantha observed. "They don't need to trust us," Daniel replied. "They just need to respect us. Trust will come with time." The Dominion had suffered its first major defeat, and humanity had found its voice in the galaxy. 6 months after humanity's first address to the Council, the Nexus Dominion sent envoys requesting peace talks. Their expansion had been halted by the Unified Defense Coalition. They faced resistance at every turn. Now, they were forced to negotiate terms rather than dictate them. The Council chamber was filled to capacity for this historic session. Daniel Carter, now formally recognized as Earth's permanent representative, no longer stood at the edges. His position was prominent, near the center, a visible sign of humanity's new status. The Arbiter called the session to order. "Today we welcome representatives from the Nexus Dominion to discuss terms for a permanent cessation of hostilities." The Dominion envoys entered the chamber. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and elongated heads. They moved with a rigid formality that suggested military training. "We come seeking mutual understanding," the lead envoy stated. "The recent conflicts have been costly for all involved." Daniel listened carefully. The envoy's words were conciliatory, but intelligence reports suggested the Dominion was merely regrouping, not truly surrendering. "Before negotiations begin," Daniel said, rising from his seat, "Earth proposes that all conquered worlds be immediately returned to their original governments. Reparations must be paid for damages." The Dominion envoy's eyes narrowed. "Such demands are premature. We offer a ceasefire in current positions, not withdrawal." "Unacceptable," Daniel replied firmly. "The coalition fleet now outnumbers your forces 3-1. We can liberate these worlds by force if necessary, but prefer a peaceful transition." Murmurs spread through the chamber. 6 months ago, such direct language would have shocked the Council. Now, many delegates nodded in agreement. The negotiations continued for hours. The Dominion envoys gradually conceded ground as they realized the Council was united behind Earth's position. By session's end, they had agreed to withdraw from all recently conquered territories and establish clear boundaries. As the envoys departed, the Arbiter addressed the chamber. "This marks a historic shift in galactic affairs. For the first time in 12,000 years, aggressive expansion has been met with unified resistance." Daniel stood to speak. The chamber fell silent immediately. No one would dare interrupt Earth's representative now. "Distinguished delegates," he began, "today marks not just the end of a conflict, but the beginning of a new approach for this Council. For too long, wisdom has been measured only by age, tradition only by longevity. But the true measure of civilization is its ability to adapt." He proposed a series of reforms, making the Security Committee permanent, implementing rapid response protocols for emerging threats, and establishing a multi-species academy to preserve strategic knowledge. "The peace we've achieved is fragile," Daniel continued. "The Dominion will test our resolve. Other threats will emerge. We must remain vigilant and united." The proposals came to a vote. Daniel watched as the chamber displays illuminated with approval signals. Species that once dismissed humanity now looked to Earth for leadership in security matters. After the session, Daniel met with his team in their expanded delegation offices. They had all changed over these intense months. They looked tired but satisfied. "We've accomplished what we came here to do," Daniel said. "Earth has a voice now. A voice that matters." "They'll be watching us closely," Olivia observed. "Every move we make, every ship we build." "Good," Daniel replied. "And we'll be watching them too. Humanity's isolation is over. We're part of something larger now. Through the viewport, they could see ships arriving from Earth, bringing new diplomatic staff, scientific experts, and cultural ambassadors. Humanity was fully engaging with the galactic community. What happens next? Samantha asked. We build, Daniel said simply. We learn. We help create a better galaxy than the one we found. As the Earth delegation prepared for the next council session, delegates from a dozen worlds waited outside to speak with them. The galaxy had changed forever, and it all began when humanity spoke at the Galactic Council, and no one dared interrupt.